Hello and welcome to this live edition, Right Person, Right Seat, building your elite teams in an era of AI. Welcome to everyone. Please do let me know who's on the call. I know a lot of people watch this on the recording, and I always do go back and have a look at the comments, but please do. This is a conversation. It's just me on the live. Normally I have a guest, but there's a few things that I wanted to talk to you about, so it's just moi. Yes, so I've got lots to cover, but I really do want to ensure that I get your engagement. So I encourage you to post your questions in the chat. Even if you disagree or agree with me, I can bring you up. I'd love to get your comments. For the people that do not know me, my name is Janice B. Gordon, the customer growth expert. I'm host of Scale Your Sales podcast, and we'll be coming up for our 6th-year anniversary on that. I normally do monthly lives, but I'm having August off. I hope you all got plans for August as well. And I talk about revenue generation and the smart way of doing that. And one of the key subjects I talk about is, rather than AI or tech leading the sales process, it's people. Without people, it doesn't matter how great your tech or your prompts are, then you're going to go a long way in the wrong direction. Rubbish in, rubbish out. So people, you've got to invest in your people. And I've always talked about the importance of having the right people in the right seat. So this is what I'm going to be talking about today. You know, I've got some really kind of powerful questions that I want to answer. And these are questions that I hear sales leaders, CEOs talking about in the AI era of how to build elite sales teams. I've also talked a lot about how sales teams are going to be smaller. Now, in the title, we looked at AI won't replace salespeople, but underperformers, I want you to be aware, because no longer can you hide in a corner somewhere looking like you're doing lots of activity. The data now is going to find you out, and AI makes you replaceable. So what I'm talking about, great salespeople are not will not be replaced by AI, and the poor salespeople, well, you're poor, you're underperforming, you have done consistently, and you know we can't afford to continue to have so much waste in the sales revenue operation. And this is what I've talked about a lot in the past. How much waste? I mean, can you imagine? For the last 30 years, we have had, on average, 50%. It's not often gone below 50%, and it's almost been as high as 62% of salespeople do not hit target consistently. That is so much waste in the system. So we need to start changing that. So let's get started on ways we can rethink how we put together our sales operation, our key salespeople in an era of AI. So let me first start by busting a few myths. And the main one is that AI is going to replace salespeople. Now, it's really here to enhance performance. That's what it's there to do. But it's going to expose the gaps that I talked about, those consistent underperformers, because AI can handle the admin. You know, the people in the corner that are busy doing busy things but not actually getting results. AI can do all of that admin. The data crunching, all the time consuming, AI can do that for you. Even parts of outreach, so what's left? What is left is the human capability, those essential elements that AI cannot replace. And the thing is that makes top salespeople consistently hitting quota is that human elements, that human capability, the emotional intelligence, the judgment, the consistency, the resilience, the ability to bounce back, to push back, to challenge customers, to really think around a subject, to have the business acumen, to be continuous learners and listeners, active listening. These are the skill sets that make great salespeople great, consistently great. So those were considered to be soft skills in the past, that leaders, it's a nice to have, but actually now it's the hard currency. It's measurable. It's the hard currency that really makes top salespeople consistently great. Now, I see this in clients. Those of you that know me, I use sales assessment. Now, it's the only predictive and verified sales assessment that exists in the world, and it's been going for over 30 years. Now, I trust that data, and it's really interesting that out of that, years of collecting data from leadership level down to sales support level, and really understanding from a global point of view in every sector and every market really what's going on, so that we can benchmark you, your product, your industry, your customer, your culture, your stage. We can benchmark you and tell you really where your gaps are using your data. What's the difference in those benchmarks? And it's brilliant. And I'm going to give you some examples of that. So do I have any questions yet? Because I can talk for England. Funnily enough, I am in England. I am English. So yeah, please do post your questions, because I'd love to hear from the audience, even if you're enjoying me rabbiting on another British phrase there. Excellent. So let me give you a case study to help to explain what I mean. I worked with a sales VP, and he said to me, his team, and he had a team of about 80 salespeople. It was in, anyway, it doesn't matter where it is in, 80 salespeople. And he said that he really believes that they have a closing problem across the team. They're not able to close the deals. So we did an assessment of the existing sales team. We did a sample, actually. We wanted to prove the product, and it was really interesting conversations that came out of it. So, and it revealed that on average, they were average at closing. So that kind of surprised him. He's a very successful salesperson, great manager, brilliant coach, really fantastic person. So it was interesting that his radar was a little bit off as to what was really going on. Interesting, but not surprising, because sales leaders often think that they know, because they take their own experience and leverage that to understand what's going on in the teams. And especially when you get sales leaders that are really people, then they feel that they really are nurturing the individuals and they know their strengths. But there's a lot that's going on between here that we cannot see, and it's really difficult to test for until we use this assessment. So what happened was that it showed that the bigger problem, was in the supportive buy cycle. And this was consistently extremely low across the team. And the supportive buy cycle was undermining their closing ability. They were not challenging and they were not pushing back, because it didn't, because of their view around the buy cycle. But also the other thing that was particularly low was taking responsibility that we tested for. Now, this is part of the 21 core competencies that make a difference to, whether someone is going to be successful on the job, not just successful in life, but on the job, in your team, right? 21 core competencies. And what was happening here is that the team was not pushing back, and they then were resigning themselves to the results, not taking responsibility, making excuses. And that's why the closing was really below par, not because they didn't have closing skills. So it's really interesting when you really delve into the data. What would normally have happened in this situation without doing an assessment is that the sales leader, knowing that, you know, they're not closing, would do a training. But that really wouldn't have moved the needle and wouldn't have had a major impact on the team, because what is underlying why they're not closing wasn't being dealt with. So when we look at what's going on within teams, it's often what's going on between here. Many managers are brilliant at coaching the deal, because it's deals they've done 100, 1,000 times before. The problem is that you have people that are managing the deal, that are nurturing the deal, and we forget that they are a greater influence on whether that deal goes forward or not. If they're actually got a lot going on between here that is unseen, it doesn't matter how well you plan out that deal. It's the individual that's not delivering it for whatever reason. But that's the thing that you need to deal with in order to make sure that you've got the right people in the right seat doing the right task and with the right level of motivation. So I'm going to pause here, pause for you to reflect on that. The question I have for you is, do you really know what's going on in your team? Do you know what's going on between here in your team? Have you tested for it? Can you see what's really happening? It's not what the symptoms are. In this case, it was closing. It's what the root cause is. Do you have a means to identify those root causes that is impacting your team? Do you? Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So, you know, again, it's not AI. This is really been rigorous about understanding your people, and that's what's going on between here, to make sure you've got the right people in the right seats. So the reason why we have so many underperformers, because we often don't know what's really going on here and we're not testing for it. So that's why there's so much waste in the system. In an era of AI, it's the great people that have the secure positions. It's the underperformers that are threatened by AI, but it's not because of AI. It's actually because of the way we operate our own revenue generating system. So we can actually make many more people on our teams be much more impactful with consistent performance if we're able to identify those hidden gaps, and if we're able to close those gaps, close the right gaps, not the symptoms, the real causes of what's going on within our teams. So the only way to do that is to do a thorough, predictive, verified assessment. Okay, so the other aspect that I wanted to share with you, and I've talked about this before, is smaller teams, bigger results. Now, the stats of 68% of companies that adopt AI added sales count, right? Versus 47% without AI. So I thought that was really interesting. And I covered this in my newsletter, this month's newsletter. So please do. You'll see all the references in there. Go and read that. So it's really interesting when we think of the threat of AI and smaller teams. It's not because of AI that teams will become smaller. In actual fact, when we really do utilize AI, we can add more headcount. They can be so much more effective doing what they do best, which is really the human element. But leaner sales teams will come because of the waste in our system. And, you know, the assessment that I work with and looks at, you know, how to outperform you and to reconcile some of those bloated teams, because you don't really want to move or discourage the wrong people or lose your top top sellers, you really want to understand, who have the greatest potential within your team that's currently untapped, and those that will never have the potential in your team, where to move them, where they're going to have more potential. So it's really about having the right people in the right seats and have leaner teams and better operations. Teams using AI saw a 29% higher revenue growth. So AI, we know, is here to stay, but it also 78% shorter deal cycle and 76% higher win rates. So we want to have the right people with the right mental attitude, and not with the limiting beliefs. We need to be coaching the ones that have the most potential and coaching them rather than the deal, but them as well, to maintain those high standards, and using the right technology, including AI, so that we can gain from those higher growth revenues, shorter deal cycles, and higher win rates. Right people, right seats with the right technology. That's what we're wanting to achieve, and that's obviously what I can help you with. But I really want you to understand, with salespeople, it's what's going on here. So you need to have a mechanism to measure and understand that, so that you can have the right people, the greatest potential in the right seats. As another example, I worked with a company, and again, we did this assessment, and we realized that there was too many of the wrong people in the wrong seats. Often you might recruit a hunter into a hunter role, but no one's ever really done the assessment. And they might have some success. They might be in a perfect vertical for them. As soon as they move, then you think, well, this top salesperson I recruited is not performing. And it may be that actually they're not a hunter. They've been in a hunter role, but they're not a hunter. So it's important to understand what are the core competencies of your existing team and where they best fit within your revenue operation. So top quartile sales teams are 2.5 times gross higher margin per sales dollar than the bottom quartile teams, 2.5 times. So can you imagine if you were to get rid of or move into the right seats the bottom quartile and spend more time with the top and the middle quartile? Top is 2.5 times higher gross margin per sales dollar, right? You can imagine you wouldn't really miss that bottom quartile. They can be in other roles, whether it's, I don't know, customer success, which is still a sales role, but making sure that you're capitalizing on right people, right seats, means that you can afford to have a leaner team if you know that you've got the right people in the right seats and you're using the technology to your advantage. Okay, I'm going to pause there again. Have we got any questions coming through for me? I'm having a look to see what's coming up. Fantastic. Yeah. Few people saying, yeah, go with it. They're loving the stats and the information. Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Okay. So let's press on here. There's nothing I can post up for the moment, just getting loads of words of support, which is brilliant. Okay. So let's talk about real coaching, real gains, and using data to move the needle. So once you've hired well, the next challenge is keeping and growing those talents. Now, that's if you've hired well. I've spoken previously about the costly mistakes sales leaders make in hiring the wrong people into the wrong seats, and how that can cost millions, blah, 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 all of that. So, this is really about role alignment and using a data-informed process to not only find them, but keep them, and keeping them in coaching and investing in them. So don't try to coach everyone in the same way. After all, our DNA tells us we're all uniquely different. And, our instincts tell us what that person's like, but the data doesn't always back that up. So when you use evaluations to identify the individual coaching gaps so that the managers know exactly how to turn those buttons on with that individual, where are the gaps, where are the areas they should focus on? The perception might be closing, but the actual area that they need to work on is supportive buy cycle or taking responsibility. If you're coaching the wrong thing, you're not going to move the needle. So hard skills and soft skills, a combination of them both, but it's really tailoring your coaching to the individual. And you can only really do that if you've identified and you know where those gaps are with that individual. And every single person on your team is going to have a different character of gap because their DNA is different. Their experience is different. They are different. So it's not a one size fits all with coaching. It may be there's a group of people working on the deal, but each of those individuals have different strengths and have different limitations. And it's understanding what they are and how you can support them for deal success. It's rather like managers are really comfortable with coaching the deal because it's deals they've done several times before themselves in their roles as salespeople. But what's absolutely critical to success is this black hole that's going on around here, and it's really starting to understand those hidden beliefs and views are the things that can win and lose the deal. One manager I worked with was trying to motivate a rep. Now, I don't know if I've spoken to so many managers in my time, and they're pulling their hair out with trying to motivate someone. You cannot, let me tell you, you cannot motivate someone, but you can identify if they are self-motivated, and what you can identify what motivates them, if it's intrinsic, extrinsic, and therefore, so you know what words to use to turn those buttons on, but you need to identify that up front to really understand it. The data revealed the issue wasn't motivation as we thought, but the data revealed that it was the need for approval. That's the thing that was stopping them from asking those tough questions in discovery. It wasn't that they weren't motivated, it's just that they needed approval. So understanding that, these are all things that happen in our personal lives, the way that we shop ourselves, the way that we interact in our personal lives, needing approval. Well, it's the same in our professional lives as well. So understanding how important these things are means that you can have a conversation around that, means that you can make the salesperson aware of that. And you're halfway there when you're aware of the things, because salespeople want to win deals. They want to win deals. But if you make them aware of this is the reason why they're losing the deal, why they're not, then they're going to want to work to fill that gap themselves with your support. So part of it is identifying what is the real root cause problem. So once we identified that and worked on it, their closing rate jumped up a good 40% in just 2 quarters. The data helped us to coach in a smarter way, not a harder way. It wasn't banging your head against the wall trying to motivate somebody. It was really understand what did motivate them and what was the thing that was undermining their motivation. Well, not even their motivation, their just ability to close deals. So I hope you can begin to see that it's not the symptoms, it's the root cause. It's not the AI that is the threat. It's making sure you have the right people in the right seats. It's making sure that you're using a data-informed approach in order to not only recruit, but also to onboard and particularly to develop your team from an individual point of view. I'd love to hear what are your biggest challenges in identifying and coaching top performers. Can you identify your top performers? Can you identify who are the performers that have the greatest potential that are yet being unutilized? Can you imagine if you were able to switch that on? First of all, it's about identifying them and then understanding what are those known gaps and how you can coach them, because your managers get the coaching notes so they know what they're looking for and they know how to deal with it. You've now, that black hole or that foggy crystal ball has become crystal clear, and you can see who should be in what seat, and you can see how you can motivate and support your team better. So drop your question in the chat even after this call, this live session, and I will certainly kind of answer all of your questions. So it's in closing, let me just wrap this up. AI won't replace your sales team, but it will expose your underperformers. It will expose those that are hiding in your team, those 50%. But really understand it's not the threat of AI, it's because we're not using a data-informed process to identify the skill sets, those hidden skill sets of our team. 77% of your sales team are either in the wrong position or shouldn't be in sales. Wouldn't you want to know who they are? Who are the ones that have got the greatest potential that you can perform? Who are the ones that you can move into what is their zone of genius and out of the zone that's really bogging them down and they're afraid to admit it? You're supporting and helping your team by putting people in the right seats for their natural skill sets, and then being able to motivate the individual by releasing them from the things that are tying them down, those limiting beliefs, by coaching the individual rather than coaching, well, as well as coaching the deal. You must know who is the right person for that right seat, right? And you can only do that by using a predictive and verified data set. And that's using your own data. So this is, the 21 core competencies will help you predict and validate and coach, onboard and hire your right team. Your team is going to be lean, but you want them to be lean, but you want them all to be pulling, rowing. In my article, I talked about everyone rowing in the same direction and having different positions in that rowboat in order to win the race. And that's what it's about. And it's about using a data-driven coaching method from this data set, from the assessment on the whole team, not just the stars, not just the managers, not just the whole team, because then you have a roadmap, a complete roadmap, right person, right seat, right manager, right leader. And, where are the holes in your own sales process? What are you not doing well? So you get the whole roadmap. AI is your lever, but people are the power behind that lever. So it's really about investing in those people on your team. Only if they're aligned, only if they're enabled and empowered, are you going to consistently get the results that you really, really want. Okay, so thank you for joining me on this live. I'm having a break in August and I will be back in September. Please do, even after this recording, message me. You may agree, disagree, you may want some references or have a talk. Please do make sure you get your team aligned, enabled, and empowered. All right, take care. Have a good summer. Bye.